Have you ever stopped to think about how a brilliant idea, something born in a research lab, actually becomes a real product that can save lives or maybe power a whole new industry? Well, today, we're going to go behind the scenes in Brazil and unpack the massive, complex engine that fuels its science and technology. And it all really boils down to one huge question. So, how does a country take your tax money and turn it into genuine, life-changing breakthroughs? It's not as simple as just writing a bunch of checks. It's about designing a whole system, a smart system that channels public money into real progress, whether we're talking about a new vaccine or a cleaner energy source. And to do that, you absolutely need a plan. All right, so how does a country like Brazil get organized for something this big? It all starts with a blueprint. And this isn't just a random collection of projects. We're talking about a single, coordinated national strategy that sets the direction for the entire country.
And that blueprint has a name, the ENCTI. That's the National Strategy for Science, Technology, and Innovation. You can just think of it as the master plan. The one from 2016 to 2022, for instance, it laid out the absolute core priorities for pretty much every investment and every decision. It's the why behind everything that happens next.
And when you look at the goals, you can see just how big the vision is. It's not just about funding labs, right? It's about building the entire ecosystem from the ground up. They're focused on upgrading infrastructure, locking down the funding, developing human talent, and, this part is so important, making sure all this incredible research actually makes its way into real companies and real products. Okay, so a blueprint is great, but you need mechanics and fuel to actually build the engine. So this next part is all about the money and the key players on the ground that make this whole thing run. The main fuel for this engine is something called the FNDCT, the National Fund for Scientific and Technological Development. Honestly, the easiest way to think about it is as the central fuel tank for the entire country's innovation efforts. Pretty much all the serious funding flows from here before it gets divvied up by a whole network of other agencies. So who are the mechanics running this thing? Well, at the very top, you've got the MCTI Ministry. They set the big picture strategy. Then there's FINEP, which acts almost like an investment bank for innovation. They're the ones managing the money from that big central fund. After that is CNPq, and they focus on the people, the researchers, the scientists, and super importantly, you have state-level agencies called FAPs, which take that national strategy and make it work for local needs. Okay, so we've got the plan, we've got the money, and we know who the players are. But how does the cash actually get from the government to the projects? Let's pop open the hood and take a look inside the financial toolbox they use. But first, we need to get our heads around a key concept, a Portuguese word, fomento. This word is so much more than just funding. It's the whole idea of actively promoting or stimulating innovation. It covers the whole range of tools, grants, loans, even tax breaks. It's really a philosophy of proactive government support. Inside that fomento toolbox, you'll mainly find two kinds of support. On one hand, you've got grants. This is basically free money, non-repayable cash for those wild, high-risk ideas that could totally change the world, but that no bank would ever dream of touching. On the other hand, you have subsidized loans. This is money you do have to pay back, but with way better terms than you'd get from a bank. These are for the safer bets, projects that are a little closer to making money. And here's the key takeaway: a healthy system needs both. You need grants for the moonshots, and you need loans for the near shots. Now, any system can look good on paper, right? But how does it actually perform when it's under extreme pressure? Well, we're about to see how Brazil's innovation engine was put to the ultimate test during the COVID-19 pandemic. When the pandemic hit, it was a true all-hands-on-deck moment. And what we saw was that this decentralized system, especially at the state level, was able to pivot, and pivot fast, to address the crisis. Suddenly, it was funding everything from diagnostics to brand new medical technologies. Let's take the state of Rio Grande do Sul as an example. Their program used what's called a quadruple helix model. I know, it sounds complicated, but all it really means is they brought everyone to the table: the government, the universities, private companies, and even the public. And that collaboration let them rapidly fund projects that had an immediate impact, like new diagnostic tools and even tech to support mental health. Now, up in São Paulo, they took a slightly different path with their IDEGOV program. Instead of just funding general research, they got really specific. They defined the actual problems the government was facing, like how do we monitor ICU patients remotely, and then put out an open call to startups and tech companies for solutions. This led to some incredible stuff, like an AI that could help detect COVID-19 in X-rays. It was a way to get cutting-edge tech into hospitals fast.
So we've seen this engine can work, and work brilliantly. And there's always a but, isn't there? It's not without its problems. To really get the full picture, we need to take a step back and do a little reality check on the challenges that are still facing Brazil's innovation system.
Okay, the biggest challenge, by far, is the fuel supply. Just look at this chart. It shows the actual money that was spent, what they call budget execution, for some of these key programs. It went from over 1.5 billion reals in 2012, and then just plummeted to only 130 million by 2021. Things like budget cuts and a habit of putting funds into contingency reserves, basically putting the money on ice, have starved the engine of the very fuel it needs to run. And that creates a ton of uncertainty.
The second huge issue is just geography. The engine's power is not spread out evenly at all. The funding, the infrastructure, it's all heavily concentrated in the southeast, especially in São Paulo. This creates this massive gap, leaving a lot of states in the north and northeast without the resources they need to build their own innovation hubs.
And all of this brings us to the final, really crucial question. Brazil has a sophisticated, even a world-class blueprint for innovation. We've seen it. But a blueprint is only as good as its execution, right? So can the country solve these deep problems of funding instability and regional divides to finally unlock the full power of its innovation engine? The answer to that question is going to shape its future for decades to come.